So I started playing the violin when I was 4 years old. Um, I grew up hearing violin. I'm pretty sure I was probably listening to violin playing in the womb. My mother was a violinist.
I have a twin sister, and both of us just begged and begged and begged when we were, about 3 to be allowed to start playing violin for real, like our mom did. We had little toy violins, and we would stand near her when she was practicing in the living room, and we had these little wooden boards and like sticks that we would pretend to play the violin while mom was playing and just pantomime along, and we begged to be allowed to play for real. So for our 4th birthday, they got us a violin, and we started taking lessons from our grandmother. Um, I'll just keep it simple. Growing up, I listened to a lot of classical music. My mother was a violinist, my grandmother was a violinist. Several of my aunts and uncles also played string instruments or piano. And my mother played in a symphony in the area. I think probably when I was a little older, like mid to upper elementary, there started to kind of be the conflict of, oh, you need to go practice, and I don't want to practice. And then, the days where I felt like, lessons weren't going well and I wanted to quit, and it just wasn't even a question. It was very clear that I was not allowed to quit until I was much older, which now I look back and I'm very thankful for, but I definitely remember some very dramatic scenes of me begging and pleading and crying to quit.
I started playing the violin when I was 5. When I was 3 years old, I saw a little girl on Sesame Street playing violin, and I begged my parents to let me start taking lessons, and they told me that I could start when I turned 5. I actually hated it from age 7 to 12. I wanted to quit. I hated that my parents made me play it. Um, and I think it's just because my parents were trying to get me to practice, and so me being rebellious didn't want to play anymore. But then I learned to love it, and now I'm here. So.
Well, learning the violin was always my project in that it was my idea. My parents never said, oh, you have to take violin lessons, you need to practice, you need to do a summer festival, you need to do orchestra. They never pushed anything on me. They were just really supportive, but they never stayed in my practicing or enforced a certain regime of, how to do things. They're not musicians and they don't play any instruments, so they just left it up to me, and I think that's probably why for me it remains something pleasurable and sort of positive in my life, just because it wasn't something I had to do.
I think when I was little, my ability, I guess it was pretty good. I was usually with all the older kids in group classes and stuff. But I don't think I was very confident. I remember anytime I'd have to play in a solo recital, I would just get so nervous and usually mess up because I would psych myself out. My most memorable and worst performance, I think I was in my sophomore year, and I did a summer program at Eastman, and I completely forgot to put my music in the right order for a Mozart sonata, and it was upside down, and just it was so bad, and so I had to completely fake the second page of the sonata, which was awful. But apparently my no one really noticed because I just kind of made up notes that went along with it. But I was devastated afterwards. That was awful. Okay, performance anxiety has been a huge issue of mine. I hate playing solo. I psych myself out. But orchestra, chamber music is fine. So to get over that, I just try to calm myself down. I try not to think about it too much right before getting on stage. But it definitely affected me, like, in competitions. Like, I would never do as well as I would hope, or, like, college auditions, those didn't go very well either. So definitely a big problem of mine. I, like, will start shaking a lot, and so I'll get, like, the bow shakes and then, like, really, really tight vibrato. Um, and then I usually just get, like, super silent before a performance. Like, if someone tries to talk to me, like, I won't say anything. I'll just be like, don't, like, I'll sit in my own little corner. Yeah, and if it's really bad, I'll, like, forget the music, which is always awful.
I think when I first started, it was really discouraging for everyone. That is to say, for me and for my parents and my teacher, in the sense that I was 10 years old, and so you could say I was behind the learning curve. There were kids that were 3 or 4 that were playing pieces that were more advanced. At a certain point, the divide between playing the piano and playing the violin became really problematic for me, simply because there wasn't enough time to go around for all the practicing that had to be done. So I kept it up until about 16 years of age, but then after that I just had to focus on violin, so that meant giving up piano. I used to really, really be into horseback riding. I started horseback riding when I was 5 years old, and that also had to go when I was a teenager, just because the risk of me falling and breaking something was too big, and the time commitment was also significant, so that had to go. I got into freestyle ice skating, and as soon as my teacher heard that, that was obviously a really big no. And I guess all activities kind of had to dwindle down a bit because my main focus was school and violin.
I was like a big athlete, which is really funny. When I was in elementary school, I probably played like every sport. Like every season, I was playing 2 sports maybe, and it was mostly just like for me to like run out my energy, because I had a lot of energy when I was little. My parents would get super irritated, and like I continued to play sports through high school. I played like 2 sports, and that I think affected definitely like practice time. And also I just like was way more focused on playing like succeeding in the sport than violin. Like I wanted to go to college for field hockey at one point, and so I would not really practice, and then like kind of on a whim I was like, hey, let's do music, and now I'm here. But yeah. I did group classes a lot when I was little. Kind of hated those. They kind of sucked. Except when like the teachers would bring like candy or something for doing well. I liked that. Um, I did a few competitions when I was younger, and they were fun, but like I would get so nervous, so I would always psych myself out. But I really liked going and like going with all my friends, so that was cool. It was more of a social thing. I think like most of my friends are from like music. Well, most of my like oldest friends are from music, I guess, from when like I was really little and taking group classes, and then like through like middle school, like orchestra and stuff like that. I definitely did it just like for the social part of it. I didn't do it. I never had the intention of like coming and studying music. That's not why I ever did it. So yeah, I did have like a lot of friends in like youth orchestras and stuff like that.
I remember a lot of teachers encouraged me to do music, especially at like music programs and summer camps. They were like, "Oh, you could be really, really good. Go to like top schools if you work hard." I always had that idea of going to like that I could be one of the best. Like they kept saying that to me, and I think that really motivated me. Yeah. Um, I've been realizing that in the past maybe there are some things that I wasn't able to hear, which didn't really bother me a lot, but I think the thing is, I gotta remind myself that there's always room for improvement. As long as I'm improving, it doesn't bother me, and I just do my best to perfect that piece. Yeah. I think it was just like maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I was studying at Mount Carmel College, doing my electrical engineering courses, and in my sophomore year, things just got like harder, and I still kept practicing every day. I would just practice for hours, and then the conductor was also telling me like, "Oh, you should totally do music. You should totally do." And my private teacher, the same thing. And after I thought about it, I was like, "Yeah, I'm spending all this time in it. I think that's the thing that's making me happy, so I should just stick with it." More than enough.